Sorry, everyone. Just waiting for Martin Elliott to pop back. Won't be a sec. Good morning. I'm Councillor Mike Adams, the chair of the committee. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the meeting, the Place Select Committee, and this is being broadcast live and recorded for publication. So, first item on the agenda is to note chair and vice chairman appointments. To note the appointment of full council on 16th of May 24 of myself, Councillor Mike Adams, Chairman, and Councillor Tom Hollis to my right as Vice Chairman of the Place Select Committee for the 24-25 municipal year. We don't have to vote on that. No, it's just a vote. Moving on to item 2, committee membership. To note that the committee membership for the 24-25 municipal year is as follows. Councillors Barney, Butler, Callaghan, Gowland, Ogle, Oliver, Mrs. Sue Addington, Upton and Williamson are all on the committee for this year. And on to item 3, which is the minutes, and that's phone's gone, there we go. Ask you all to approve the minutes from the last meeting. If we can have a show of hands, please, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. That's carried. On to item 4, apologies for absence, please.
Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Richard Butler for other County Council business, with Councillor Elliott substituting. I have apologies from Councillor Kane Oliver with Councillor David Martin substituting, and I have apologies from Councillor Gerling, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Asset Management, with the Deputy Cabinet Member, Councillor Reg-Dare, substituting.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody that's substituting today and featuring in today's meeting. We appreciate your help. So moving on to declarations of interest, item 5. If any council or officers has an interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand if you have an interest to declare, and if you have an interest to declare, you should state what type of interest it is and give brief details. No hands have gone up, so we'll class that as read. Okay, on to item 6. So we're straight into the outcomes of the scrutiny review of catering and facilities management. That's what it says on there. Is that the way around?
That's my mistake. So it's probably my mistake.
Thank you, Martin. I'll try that again. Item 6 is the visitor economy framework. With 1 year on. So if I could ask Councillor Reg-Dare to present the report, please. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. You've all got the notes on pages 13 all the way through. I'm sure you've all read them and absorbed them, and I haven't got much more to say about them, but hopefully Joelle can take a little and talk us through some of the key points.
Thank you, Councillor Dare. So really pleased to be here today to outline all of the work that we've been doing on the Visitor Economy Framework document since we were last here at the Place Select Committee subgroup back in January 2023. As part of that work, we did extensive consultation with key stakeholders, including our district and borough colleagues, but also with yourselves as a Place Select Committee. And as I say, we did have a separate subgroup where we discussed all the consultation, all of the content of the document, and actually that helped us to revise and to adapt the document. Some of the points that were covered are covered in paragraph 4, and as part of that process we were asked to come back after a year of adoption to review the work that we've done but then also to identify and give you the opportunity to shape some of the future priorities. So what we were hoping to do today is to put into pictures some of the work that we've achieved and we've been doing over the last year, and Laura's going to talk you through that. What I would say though, before I ask Laura to give you a flavour of what we do, as a county council, we work very closely with our district and borough colleagues. So a lot of what we do is actually helping them to facilitate discussions, to help shape what they do, to support them with a lot of their levelling up funding and towns funding that they've achieved. Our role as a county council then is to then be able to provide that strategic steer, that shaping and influencing role. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to add value to what already exists. We're not there to duplicate work. And so we're really keen to make sure that everything that we do is in partnership with our colleagues. So hopefully you'll start to see a little bit more about what we've achieved in the last year. So I'll pass you over to Laura Simpson, who is the senior officer responsible for this area of work. And is it possible to share the presentation as well at the same time, please, Martin? Thank you. We're building suspense, aren't we?
Everybody see that? Good morning, everybody. My name's Laura Simpson. I'm lead for the visitor economy here at the County Council. It's my pleasure to talk to you all today about the visitor economy framework and where we are 12 months on. The visitor economy framework, if we could just move on to the next slide, please. And the associated action plan was set out to communicate to people the ambitions for the visitor economy of the County Council and how best that we can support and bolster this sector. There were 5 main priority areas of work which were identified as part of the framework and action plan, which involved investing in people, investing in the promotion of our county, investing in the product that we have, the place, shaping and our performance. Could you just move on to the next slide, please? So the progress 12 months on, so there's been considerable progress against the visitor economy framework since its adoption in spring 2023. First of all, we have gone into an agreement with the Destination Management Organisation of Marketing Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. Their visitor economy division is known as Visit Nottinghamshire, and we are now working with them to deliver a programme of work which centres around the visitor economy, namely looking at leisure and business tourism. Next slide, please. We have worked extensively with our district and borough colleagues, as Joanne mentioned. They do hold most of the product, so we're working very closely with them. We now have a district and borough visitor economy group that meets regularly, and we're looking at ways that we can support each other to bolster the sector. Next slide, please. So the local visitor economy partnership, this was down to the restructure from the Dubois review that followed a couple of years ago, and it was a complete restructure of the way that tourism boards operate throughout the country to get special attention and resource from Visit England. DMOs now have to be accredited local visitor economy partnerships. So we helped Visit Nottinghamshire with this application and the letter of support for getting that accreditation. and we also were instrumental in garnering support from the districts and colleagues, from our district and borough colleagues to support that application as well. Next slide, please. So Forest Corner, so we're working closely with our key partners, including the RSPB and Newark and Sherwood District Council, to work on a Forest Corner master plan. It's one of our key areas within the county, and we're working to establish a new vision for the home of Robin Hood, which will shortly be ready for consultation. Next slide, please. We trialled some business support and a training programme for visitor economy businesses. We supported 37 businesses and organisations over 3 sessions, which included how to lead a terrific tour, what's TripAdvisor, how to work with accessibility in your tourism organisation. And we know that that training has been successful because we've got feedback from certain attractions that they've now implemented what was learned in those training sessions in their organisations. So that's really positive. Next slide, please. So the visitor economy framework is based around key themes. There's 6 of them, and we are looking at those themes and trying to prioritise where our work should start. And one of the key themes, apart from Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest, that keeps coming up time and time again is the sport element. We are particularly strong on sport, sport as a spectacle, so spectator sport. So there was a submission of a briefing a couple of months ago which outlined the opportunities that there are around the development of this core theme for Nottinghamshire. And we are currently putting together a programme of work which will be setting out what the county council can do, working with partners to implement improvement in sports tourism. Next slide, please. And finally, visitor economy data. Visitor economy data continues to be a vital tool to measure our progress and inform future priorities and planning. From the data, we actually are working with our district and borough colleagues and Visit Nottinghamshire to share costs on purchasing STEAM data. And from that, you can see the recent STEAM data there. So the figures there, it's missing 2020, of course, because that wasn't recorded during the pandemic. But in 2022, because it always works a year behind, in 2022, the visitor economy for Nottinghamshire reached an unprecedented just over 2 billion. Although our visitor figures aren't quite back up to where they were pre-pandemic levels, there are signs that this will improve by 2025. Where we do need to improve is on the tourism jobs. So you can see there we've lost just under 3,000 jobs since the pre-pandemic figures. So we're trying to do a series of campaigns and projects working with partners to try and develop the opportunities for visitor economy jobs throughout the sector. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura. So hopefully that's given you a flavour of some of the work that we've been doing over the last year, and then the details in paragraph 10 start to identify some of our priorities for the following year, and we would welcome any comments or feedback on the work done today and our planned work for the next year. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Joe, as well, and also Councillor Adair for those comments. So just before we get into asking questions, I just want to remind everyone that we're all here as elected councillors today as individuals, and here to represent the groups of Nottinghamshire County Council as an area, and politics should always be left at the door in this committee. A famous councillor once told me that the best meetings finish within an hour, and it would be great today if we could achieve that. And I'll hand it over to you all for any questions you have about the fantastic report that was just presented to us. Thank you. We'll kick off with Councillor John Ogle, please.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman. It's a very interesting report, and I can't find anything that's not lucid. But what I would suggest is you haven't mentioned the historic, because there's a lot of historic. I know we automatically go to it. I used to take my children to places like the Papuit pumping station, just for instance. So there's a lot of historic. I don't think you've mentioned it a lot in here. The other thing is we've got a lot of beautiful countryside in Nottinghamshire. We've got North and East Basildor, we've got Newark, we've got Rushcliffe, and even around some of the other more densely populated areas, some nice countryside. I don't think there's anything about preserving that, because I know in Basildor we've had 25% increase in houses in the rural villages. A lot of those villages are very attractive. You do need a little bit of expansion, but I don't think it's going to encourage people to come to that rural environment if you've got a housing estate, a massive housing estate latched onto each village, because there's a lot that they can do there. There's a lot of festivals and things, and in the past year I've done one or two things, and I found that some people do come from further afield to events. They see them and they do come. So there's an opportunity there. We've got the hotels, we've got the lovely dining places, and I would just like to see some acknowledgement of the environmental thing, because I do know the city, for instance, is spreading out. I think that needs to be done very carefully, because if you start locating large numbers of people in the middle of nowhere, that is going to spoil that rural environment. Thank you, Chairman.
Any comments on that?
No, sorry, absolutely everything you've said. We're really passionate about the historic environment, and that is one of our key themes. So we'll definitely take that on board. And then, we wouldn't be where we are without the beautiful countryside, and that's a lot of what we're trying to achieve is changing people from just coming for the day to coming for a weekend or a longer period of stay. And that's making the most of that countryside and all the assets that we've got. So yeah, absolutely. I was also limited with how much I wanted to write in the report. Otherwise, we could have explained a lot more of everything that we do. We do have a detailed action plan, and I assure you that a lot of that is already included, but perhaps didn't make it to the final cut of the report.
Where were you chatting? Councillor Upton, please.
Thank you. Yes, good report. Interesting. My comment, I suppose, is around accommodation. For those people that don't come for a day trip, I would assume, unless they've got friends and relatives, they're looking for somewhere to stay the night or nights. On page 14, Visitor Economy Framework Action Plan, bullet point 3, it says, consider more research into the accommodation sector and how it can be improved. I don't personally like the word consider, it's a bit woolly to me, and I'm not sure that much consideration about the accommodation sector has taken place, or I can't read anywhere. It does touch on it, I suppose, on page 16. 16, it talks about the hospitality, contact with, VF Action Plan officers will continue to increase the number of hospitality jobs, which I suppose vaguely talks about accommodation. But from a local perspective, I've had friends from Norfolk and around the UK really struggle to find somewhere to stay in Rushcliffe. And my perception of living there for 48 years, there ain't many hotels, B&Bs or anything in the district for people to come and stay for more than a day trip. Are you doing more than considering the research into the accommodation? Are you actually being proactive and engaging with hoteliers, B&Bs and the rest? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Upton.
Yes, is the answer. So there was an accommodation survey completed a couple of years ago across the D2N2 area, and part of those recommendations was a number opportunities for further increases of accommodation, which actually did directly lead to the new travel lodge at Mansfield. And part of the business case that colleagues in Mansfield actually put to Travel Lodge was on the back of that survey. We recognise, though, that a lot has changed since then, and there's been a significant change from hotel accommodation to using Airbnb as well. So actually, we are going to go back to cabinet members to ask to be able to do some further work on accommodation review. Laura and the team have gone through all of those recommendations and have identified where they haven't been met or where they have. And the view is that we would like to put an ask to the combined authority to revise that accommodation survey across the D2N2 area again. It isn't perhaps as explicit in our priorities, but under the action plan, there is a specific reference there to increasing the number of jobs and the number of visitors, their spend and the length of stay. And for us, having the right accommodation, the right quality and the right location is fundamental to getting people to stay longer. So just to reassure you, sorry we didn't explicitly put it in the report, but we're absolutely doing that work.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councillor Garland, please.
Thank you. I just have to start by saying I think everything's political, but anyhow, quite a few points. I'm really pleased to hear there's an action plan because I do find the document, I'm sorry, as it is quite undetailed. There's a lot of, partnerships and so on. So I don't know if it's possible to share the action plan because I'm really pleased to hear there is detail behind this. It would be good to see more data. So, for instance, the Airbnb, and I think you just said this is what you're going to do. It'd be good to see the number of people staying in Airbnb because I guess one of the questions I have is, do we know where these jobs have been lost? Was it from accommodation, catering, sport, entertainment? What was the take up of business support training? How many people took it up? The visit knots. How much funding comes from the county and how much comes from the city? I guess that's a bit hard to separate because of the boroughs. But my main question is about travel. So I know I might sound like a broken record, but I think this is absolutely critical. And it's not just for the residents, it's also for the visitors. So this weekend, we've got the Take That concerts at the City Ground. And it's going to be chaos for everybody in this area, but it's also going to be chaos for the people coming. And one of the ways to really annoy visitors is if they can't park, they can't travel. I see people coming to the City Ground, driving round and round, and I'm getting annoyed with them, but I'm sure they're getting even more annoyed as they're getting late for the match. So I think we need a joined up, and if the county's role is to work with the boroughs and with other partners, surely one of the things the county can do, even within the mayoral authority, is tackle transport. And I would ask why we aren't asking these venues to provide, for a few pounds extra on a very expensive ticket, included travel passes, and similarly for accommodation. So people coming have basically, effectively, from their point of view, free local travel. And if they want to come with their car, fine, but otherwise everything else will be included. And this would help, even if only 5% of people used it, it would massively alleviate some of the problems around here, and not just here. I'm sure it's the same up in Retford and other areas where there's big visitor numbers coming. Thank you.
Just momentarily, sorry, I should have said party politics, Penny, in fairness. But yeah, I think, and that was a very non-political answer, so thank you very much for that. Over to you, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll try and go through them in order that you mentioned, Councillor Gowan. Yes, there is the action plan. More than happy to share that. It is very detailed, and a lot of it is also trying to identify what each of the districts and boroughs are doing. But yeah, happy to share that after the meeting. If we pass that through. The comment about data will be music to Laura's ears because she is the data queen, and we've secured all the Airbnb data. We've got all of the data about the visitor account. So as soon as you said it, it made me smile because Laura is very passionate about understanding what that data is saying, the trends, and what more we can do. So absolutely, a lot of what we've been doing is informed by that. part of what we've been trying to do with the framework document was very much about trying to galvanise people into what we would like to do rather than to detail how we want to do it. And for us, that was really important because when we first started this journey, we were trying to bring people on board and to, as I say, to galvanise them. The action plan that sits underneath then is then when we go back to them and say, so how are you going to help us to achieve that? And again, we needed the data to be able to inform some of that. So hopefully you can see that there's nothing contentious in that framework document intentionally, as I say, to bring people along with us. The action plan is where we really start getting into the details. In terms of the training, that was a trial. We wanted to see if it worked. We wanted to see if there was the appetite. It did work. There were some things that didn't quite work, and actually part of that now, when we did the briefing to EDAM, identified that it's not for us to do that training. We need to be able to articulate and facilitate training, and we're expecting Visit Knots in our new contract to do much more of that. But again, we did do a briefing and review and evaluation that we took to Councillor Adair and Councillor Girling to review that. In terms of the Visit Knots contract, that was a EDAM decision, so there is all the information that's publicly available, but again, I can send you that link. It's a trial, so we're running it for 18 months. We're doing a 6-month review actually that's due in EDAM in the next couple of weeks to review how the first 6 months has gone, whether we need to change or amend that contract or our expectations of that. But again, that's a public decision document, so I'll share that. And then finally, I think, travel and parking. So it's brilliant that we get all these visitors, but if they come, park up and then go again, that's a really missed opportunity. So a lot of the work that we're doing under the Sport as a Spectacle theme, as I said earlier, is how we get them to try and stay for longer. But we also recognise that having that large influx of visitors into a small space can have unintended consequences, and so we have set up a cross-council group where we are working with a number of colleagues across the council to try and address some of those. We've not got there completely, but one of Laura's key aims is to try and make sure that we link in much better with our public transport colleagues and to make sure that visiting our attractions doesn't rely on a private car and there are other options. So hopefully next year when we come back and update you, we'll be able to tell you a lot more about what we've been achieving in that area. Hopefully I've answered all your queries.
Thank you. Before I bring Councillor Martin, I just want to ask you about that because a lot of towns will go and visit, have these big red buses with the open tops and all that sort of thing. We don't sort of have that in Nottinghamshire, Nottingham City. Smaller things, we're talking about some of the bigger tourist attractions in the meeting so far, but there's little things like there's an old well in Wells Road that's really famous for its St Anne's, and it's a real sort of point in history for Nottingham City. And I'm conscious that a lot of that history isn't accessed because of the simplicity of hopping on a red bus, and on that is a stop that stops you there so you can see. I mean, there's not a lot to see there now, but maybe that's as you're passing through. And I realise that getting to some of our things is difficult because obviously Sherwood Forest from Nottingham City is a long way away as well. But it is, I take Councillor Garland's point on that, and I think that's something that's always been in my head, that we could do something that does do that brings it all together in a very obvious way, and almost stands out so well that people can't help but get on it and use it. So that was my 5 pence worth on that, but thank you.
Just that, thank you for your support. Absolutely what we're trying to achieve. So it's really pleasing to hear that we're on the right lines. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Martin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You'll have to forgive me if I wander off subject a little bit because I haven't been on this committee for about 5 years and I've been helicoptered in last night. So I haven't really had time to read the full report. But obviously, if we start with Nottinghamshire as a whole, everybody knows that wherever you go in the world, that people refer to Nottinghamshire and you say anything to them, it's Robin Hood. So, since, consequence of 1100 years ago. But the other thing that people remember about Nottingham is Nottingham Forest, of course, right? And that will be down to Brian Clough and his back-to-back European Cup wins in 79-80. But we have a unique position in the world where we have, unfortunately for Councillor Gowland in West Bridgeford here, we have Notts County Council, Nottinghamshire County Football Club, Notts Forest, and of course Trent Bridge, which is by virtue going to bring huge amounts of people in all year round. And we are very fortunate insofar as we have that. And I think there's a lot to be said about the bloody goes off when you don't want it to. There's a lot in your sport as a spectacle issue, and Nottingham itself with Nottingham Forest, Notts County, and Trent Bridge has got a unique position in the world to monopolise on that. And I think it'll drive the nighttime economy of Nottingham, and getting people to stay here for longer would be a prime directive in my opinion. But when we look at Nottinghamshire as a whole, we have a vast array of other great assets around the county that Councillor Ogle alluded to, and I'll start with the Dukeries like Hardwick, Chatsworth, Thoresby, Welbeck, Newstead. They're all there, and we have a fantastic history across the county. We've got Southwell Show, and now, of course, we're in the combined authority. We've got Chatsworth Show as well. And I would like to know, because obviously your department works on a budget, and I would like to know going forward what we are proactively doing to seek funding from the new mayoral authority to expand that, because obviously it's been alluded to that our programme is currently unambitious. Well, you're now in the position to chuck some money at it and make it more ambitious. So, I'm hoping that that's the way we're going to be going forward, because you are constrained by the budget that you have in the work that you do. That's the usual case. But there is a lot in Nottinghamshire that we don't talk about, because we have fabulous history, and we talk about Newark and the Civil War, Southall, all that kind of stuff. And there's a huge amount of stuff that isn't in here, and and I just think, from my point of view, we have a lot more to offer. And part of this framework and this promotional effort should be to tell people what's here and draw them in, and then let the rest run its own course. Thank you, Chair.
I think that was a cracking question. Over to you.
Thank you. And again, that enthusiasm for the area is exactly what we want to harness and to work with. So in terms of funding going forward, there's two real funding streams that we've identified. One of them is through the local visitor economy partnership work, and having that designation now means that in Visit England's eyes, we're accredited, so we can apply for further funding. And to be able to do that, we needed to enter into that partnership with Visit Notts. So that was a key stage for us over the last year to be able to achieve that. We're now engaging very heavily with Visit England about the destination management plan is their term. Once we've got the destination management plan, which is essentially our version of the action plan and the framework. Once we've done that in collaboration with Nottingham City, we can then put that through to Visit England, and there's an expectation that there should be funding following on from that. You identified the second source of funding through the combined authority, and I'm really pleased to say that we're actually at an international investment, it's called UK Reef session yesterday, where Visit Notts, the Mayor and ourselves were on a panel talking about investment opportunities for the wider region. So a lot of what we've done over the last year is being able to articulate our area, the strengths of our area, but also what more we need to do. So as I say, I'm hoping that this year you'll really see that actually a lot of that hard work and background that we've done will mean that we can use it as a springboard.
Brilliant. So a turbocharged 24 then, Joe, it sounds like. Councillor Saddington, you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will just throw something into the mix which may be a thought. I have a friend who goes to London quite a lot, and she parks on the outside of London and gets the tube into London. And where she parks, she looks on the internet, and people actually rent their drives out, and she can park on somebody's drive at whatever cost, I don't know, and her car is safe and it's not in the city. Now, Councillor Gowland is reporting about people driving round and round and round to park, we've got all these lovely big houses around. I wonder if you've ever approached any of them and asked if, you know, they'd consider renting their drive for a day, because I would. I think we'd get about 10 in our drive, so I'd do pretty well, but I don't live here. Pardon? Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility.
Wonderful. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, I've heard of that as well, and Councillor Gams alluded to the fact that goes on already. And I think, yeah, the wider the yeah. Forest Super. Oh yes, take that, isn't it? I can't believe we've not had any take that puns in this entire meeting. By the way, I mean, it could be magic if we'd have got it right. On that terrible joke, over to Councillor Tom Holly.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a really good discussion actually. I mean, I think the obviously renting of the drives thing is certainly something that's already happening here from my own perspective. But I'd be intrigued to see what's going to happen actually when, you know, potentially this site gets reused, and what happens to all the probably thousands of them without cars that park here for the football and cricket. So that'd be interesting. And the only other thing to pick up with Councillor Martin's question as well was, of course, the only thing that Mr. Bradley and Mrs. Ward seemed to agree on during the mayoral campaign was the unambitious nature of our visitor economy, and that wouldn't have come as the first time you've heard that. And I think it's not something we want to dwell on as from a political thing. It's more of a thing if that's something they're both saying. And like I say, one of the few things they can agree on. I hope that's going to be a bit of a red flag for us to step up really. And I think some of the things people say to me is, you know, is the visitor economy really that important? You know, should we get the basics right, like, you know, resurface roads and fill potholes? You know, people tell me they don't think tourism should be a priority when the biggest issue we face is the diabolical state of the highways. Many visitors tell me the state of the highways is the biggest simple factor, meaning that tourists don't come back when damaging their cars on potholes. I don't think that's particularly correct. I think anything we can do to attract visitors to spend their money here, it protects jobs, especially in the hospitality industry. I see that as a great thing. I agree that using sport as an economic driver is vital. We've all seen advantages of hosting stages of Tour of Britain, not least in getting some of the roads fixed during the process. But I must flag the ongoing issues relating to the City Ground and the issues with Nottingham City Council with the lease. I feel that the club are now fixated on moving. They won't be surprised to see what Mr. Malinakis has said. He's almost given up on the City Ground now. Moving from the City Ground, and whilst causing split loyalties amongst fans, what impact do you think Nottingham Forest leaving the City Ground would have on our local tourism?
Over to you.
Okay, so lots of points in there, and I think the key thing that I would pick out of all of that is 18 months ago we didn't have a vision, we didn't have anything that we could articulate for our visitor economy, and everything everyone said today just shows the passion for our area. What we've been doing over the last 18 months is to be able to articulate that in a way that actually the mayor, the Visit England, whoever it may be, can actually really truly understand what is special to our area, and for us to be able to articulate that in the best way. So there's a lot of other details in there, there's a lot of other questions, and actually part of the work that Laura does across the council and with colleagues in Derbyshire is to try to make sure that we maximise the economic benefits for the visitor economy, and we don't necessarily get drawn into all of those detailed discussions. Our role as officers here is to make sure that if there is an economic benefit, that we maximise it, and we try to make sure that that's fairly distributed across the county. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of what we're trying to do as officers. I'm sure that some of those other points will be covered in other arenas.
Just pick up on just what the question that was unanswered there. So obviously the City Ground moving, it's obviously quite highlighted. The reason I mentioned it is it's highlighted in the report quite in detail. I just wondered what impact that would have on our strategy. if they were to leave.
Yeah, Derek Hickton, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, councillors, for the question. I suppose the straight answer to that question is at this point we don't know what any future decision the club might make about its location would have on the very local visitor economy, either in this part of the world, in Bridgeford, or in any location that the club might choose to go to in the future. Because, of course, our current strategy kind of predates those most recent discussions. If and when the club does elect to relocate, then obviously Joe and the team will be able to do some work on impact that might have, positive and negative, depending upon the choices that the football club makes.
If I could just come back briefly, I've obviously just been told that Miss Simpson here is data queen. I'm sure that there's be some data to evidence actually what a football match brings with Airbnbs and etc. So we're not starting from ground zero to know what impact it would have. I'm sure we've got some of that data available already. So it'd be interesting to maybe add some meat to the bones there. But I appreciate that we are stepping into the unknown. It's something that nobody here in our lifetimes would have lived the city ground not being there. And I suppose it's maybe just being prepared, because obviously while it's not in our control, it's certainly of interest to everybody here, fan or not. You know, particularly Councillor Gowan. I don't know if she's a major football fan, but it does have a big impact on actually, even if we're not. You know. So I'm trying to win you a few votes, Gowan. But no, it is important, and I appreciate that. I've asked a telling question, but hopefully it's a bit of a line in the sand with kind of what, as a committee, I'd hope to see some answers to if it does move, and hopefully we're prepared for it.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. Thanks for your answer as well, everybody on that. Councillor Elliott, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Great report. Yeah, we'll see what happens this weekend, won't we? At the city ground, sorry, because it could be the greatest day, one we will never forget. But with a little patience, it could be time to shine. Okay.
Thank you so much for boxing that off. Honestly.
My question is one about the. Sorry. I have. Was it? I want you back. My question is one about the financial implications, the financial impact. So there's no immediate financial impact. So how soon would it be? And some of the financial impacts, are they long-term contracts? Because in our overview committee, which I chair, we're going to be reviewing some of those. So will any of those come up when we do our review of those? Just a quick question. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, so in terms of the report, the priorities that we've identified are already fully costed as part of our base budgets within the Economic Growth and Regeneration Service. So this report isn't seeking any further financial contributions to this. Everything that we do is contained, as I say, within our own budgets. However, going forward, if we want to create that step change, as we've mentioned today, we will be seeking external funding to do a lot more of some of the things that are identified in the action plan. But everything that's contained within this report is within our own budgets.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Councillor Callaghan, please.
Thank you. In paragraph 8, it makes reference to the STEAM data. Where is this data stored? How is it collected? Is it publicly accessible? And how often is it updated? And how much do we pay for it? That's that one. So, and then the visitor economy, our data set indicates we've seen less than 3% growth cumulatively since 2019. That is significantly below inflation and would indicate that the economy in real terms has actually shrank. Also evidenced by the reduction in visitors and jobs, which is disappointing. But I see you going to the business conference in June. I wondered if there was any way that you could showcase some of the good stuff that we do have to sell that point about what a great county we've got.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, so the STEAM data is something that we've been very keen to secure and to work with our colleagues in districts and boroughs to get that level of detail. Actually, the data for us, it was reassuring that we're at least bouncing back from the pandemic. So when we compare it to other areas, we were really pleased that actually we're on an increase. But actually, really truly getting underneath those numbers is going to be crucial for us to understand where the further opportunities, why are the job numbers maybe not bouncing back in the same way. And it is a very complicated picture to fully understand, which is why Laura had asked for things like the Airbnb data as well to really get to grips with that. We are going to be doing a lot more work on that, and more than happy to share some of the details of the costs and the especially for your local area. I'm happy to share that after the meeting. This is the start though, and as I say, we are bouncing back, but we do want to do more, and that's exactly why we are going to things like the business show, and we've identified that's a real growth area, business visitors, especially as hybrid working and people are changing their ways. Business tourism is a really big growth area, we think, so we're going to do more work on that. But if you're happy, I'll share a bit more information about that STEAM data and what it means for your local area as well.
Wonderful. Just finally, Councillor Gowan wants to come back on something. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mention it earlier, and actually, Councillor Hollis brought it up a bit. Clearly, I mean, I am very proud to represent the area that has forest. The Trent Bridge and indeed the Water Sports Centre isn't in my area, but it's very close by. And obviously, we have an opportunity here, which would be very unfortunate for us move, because there's of course a lot of shared resources in terms of parking and potential public transport and all the services that are provided to the fans. And of course, this building here we're sitting in now is, for better or worse, going to be changing its use. And it feels to me, and as I've said all along, that there's an opportunity here to develop on the sporting legacy and future in this area. And I would really hope that you will work with Forest to keep them here, and make it a place they want to be, not a place they want to leave. I'm happy to moan about Forest and the parking, but ultimately, they to me, as a resident myself, it's great to be able to hear them singing from the stands. So I think it would be really a shame if they moved, and I really hope that you will use this opportunity of this space and bring it to them as something they can work with to try and actually, stay, please.
Thank you very much, and a great point made. Okay, thanks everybody for a great debate. I thought that was really good, and appreciate all your support for the team. And Councillor Adair would like to come back.
I'd just like to acknowledge all the good work that the team's doing in this direction. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we won't build this in a day, but we're in the right direction and we're going right well. And the officers, as you've heard, are very keen, very passionate about what they're doing. And I'm sure in 12 months' time you'll have a bigger and better story, and we're a bigger and richer place. Thank you.
I think now's an appropriate time to say Rome wasn't built in a day, but we weren't on that particular job, Reggie there. And thank you very much, everybody, again for that fantastic debate. And so Martin, if I can ask you to read a summary out of the discussion, please.
So I'll just have going backwards. So information on the STEAM data will be shared with members of the committee. The decision about the funding of the Visit Nottinghamshire can be circulated. And then also the action plan can be circulated to members as well. And then perhaps we'll also just note as well that a further report comes back at the date to be agreed by the chair and vice chair when there's something more to tell us.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So yeah, everybody's happy that everything's been captured and okay. So if we can take a vote, please. So if we can have a show of hands, I'd appreciate that and support this report. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you very much again, and thank you everyone for attending today. I appreciate it. So that moves me on to agenda item 7. which is the outcomes of the scrutiny review of the catering and facilities management service. So I just really want to take a moment on this and talk about what an incredible service we have in our shire, and what a great job the many people that are involved in delivering it do. We had a really fantastic couple of days going through meeting many of these colleagues, whether it be at Enterprise Foods or it be at school during actual active dinner hour, which brought back a lot of memories. Or it be looking at production facilities and all the fantastic work that's done there. The Task and Finish group looked at many different options, in fact, and actually I'm really proud that we came out with a valuable suggestion, and let's be honest, it's a recommendation to the cabinet member for to put us into a partnership, which I think is a incredibly valid way to protect staff, and also terms and conditions and the things that we hold as incredibly important to the validity of our service. The great things that come with that service, whether it be the fact that many of the, in fact almost all of the ingredients that we use in the food comes from Nottinghamshire based businesses, which I think is a fantastic thing about food miles. You know, if it's on our doorstep, we should be using it. We all like to hope that our food is not made too far away, and I think it's again a really positive thing that happens. But also that's we've all had a chance to sample, those that were on the working group had a chance to sample those foods as well. I only had 3 main courses and 2 desserts, but we won't talk about that too much. But every single mouthful of every single meal was fantastic and fully appreciated. And in fact, we were very lucky this last week as well to have some of that brought into the meal that we pay for during full council as well, and got an opportunity to taste some of that fantastic Nottinghamshire food again. And I really want to put on record my thanks to all the phenomenal staff out there that do all that fantastic work for us. They really do make a difference, and I think that's why it's so important that we've come to this recommendation. I also want to thank the vice chairman actually. So what's also happened as a result is we've ended up with a representation of an alternative view within the report, and I think this is possibly one of the most complete reports I've seen as a result of that. I think we've got a rounded view from both a group that attended all of the sessions in terms of looking at the financials and looking at the facilities we've got around us, and we've also got an alternative view as well, which is featured within that from Councillor Hollis, and I think that's important because that will go to the chairman of the committee. Sorry, I should say the cabinet member of the committee, and he will look at that, and based on all of that rounded 360 view, if you like, he will make a decision based on that. And we're very happy to welcome you to the room as well, Councillor Carlton, on that basis. And I hope that you see that in the report, and I hope you realise the work that's gone into that. I know there's 10,000 words we've discussed, I think, on a number of occasions, and I partially thank him for that. The reading was exciting and enjoyable. We got through it. That's the important thing, Martin. We got through it. But none of those words were not needed, and I think again that shows the actual quality of that report and the amount of detail that's got into it to account for all of the possibilities. So I just want to thank everybody that was involved in that as well, and involved with the working group who visited on site, spent a day going around the schools before I open it up. But like I said, we've done all the hard miles on this, and we look for your support to take it forward so we can pass it on to the cabinet member for his view. And we'll move the recommendation as well, which is on page. Sorry, 1 second, just getting a page reference for you. Sorry. Move the recommendations on page 54. Please, do I have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Upton, thank you. Okay, so I'll open it up for debate. Thank you. Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Chairman, and I appreciate you calling me first. And I want to start by saying I think everything you just said is 100% what I agree with, and I think it was a really fair representation of actually the journey. Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. No, I think it was a fair representation of the information we was walked through, and I appreciate. Unlike some members, I've been blessed to be on this authority since 2013, and it's an extremely long time. And I've seen catering change from communities committee chaired by John Cotty, and I was on that committee and been through the real journey with all how this has run. And I'd probably say the only time I fully understood actually everything we do as the county council was during the presentation, and I've certainly found it fantastic. And I'm not afraid of saying, as an experienced member, long-serving member, that I discovered some stuff we do that I wasn't aware of beforehand, and that I thought it was great. I think obviously the difference being that me, along with some other colleagues, chose not to maybe agree with the majority opinion. While I think some of the points council has just made, of course, that's how it is now, and agreeing with these recommendations today will almost certainly see them change, whether it be food miles, whether it be something else. So I didn't want to make sure I missed anything, so I prepared something to say today, because this is the first time that Nottinghamshire County Council has ever had a dissenting opinion printed in a scrutiny committee, and I hope it's not the last time, for or against our opinion actually, because I'm sure it may be the other way sometimes. But I think it's been a good process, and the whole scrutiny process I think has worked well. Obviously, I will be frustrated if the recommendations are agreed today. However, at least the cabinet member, who I'm thankful for being here today, will not only hopefully read the report and understand our opinion, and as a genuine opinion as we can do, will note that we're not going heavy on the politics with it. We genuinely hope that it's considered, and when you do come to make your decision, actually all sides are listened to. But it was a very complicated exercise. But to read what I've prepared, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to draw members' attention to paragraphs 111 to 122, which set out the dissenting view of that as a member of the working group I'm allowed to that we're legally allowed to have published. Having considered all the information and believe the recommendations as set out in the document will lead to the privatisation of school meals and a lack of oversight which will impact children of this county. Mine and the opinion of independent colleagues is summarised in paragraph 123, that the current operating model for the catering and facilities management should be maintained. We believe that savings can be made and should be made in school catering service. We don't have to serve venison to kids to ensure that they have a healthy, nutritious meal every day. Last year, this council boasted we served venison from Sherwood Forest, beef grazed in Rampton, and lamb from the Peak District. So we've gone from fine dining to taking the first step to privatising school meals. I and independent colleagues on this council would urge the government to improve the level of funding for school meals and widen the eligibility criteria for children receiving free school meals. We want to introduce free universal school meals, and that is and the key to that is more government funding. It is not washing your hands of school meals, where teachers complained that the food served at their school canteen was completely unacceptable, and saying that they say would exceptionally unhappy with if their own children's school meals were of similar quality. Evidence shows that where school meals are privatised, portions got smaller while prices have risen. Legally, the duty to provide meals at schools sits not with the councils, as the report states, but with schools, and school head teachers more specifically. Schools can provide their service as they please, provided it meets the standard outlined in the government school meal guidelines. Based on the government survey, 28% of schools contract their service with private companies, 12% of schools have an in-house service, and 60% of schools contract their service within the local authority. Privatisation has consistently been shown to have catastrophic consequences in our public services. The primary goal of private companies is to make profit rather than deliver quality, catering to the people they serve. As we saw with the litany of scandals in recent years, often one of the central ways private companies squeeze profit out of our services to find reduced costs. Either this comes from undermining the rights and wages of workers, or it is from cutting corners and lowering standards of delivery. This applies to school meals provisions as much as any other service. For private companies delivering school meals, there are two ways to cream off profits. First, they hire as few staff as possible on bad terms and conditions with terrible pay. Second, they can use little of the money they get to provide the service to meet very basic nutrition and contractual standards. Staff not feeling sufficiently compensated side by side with managers paid to find ways to skimp on the budget is a recipe for substandard service. It is also a recipe for missing the entire point of school meals in the first place, the well-being of children. Private companies will never put that well-being first, instead of chasing new ways to strengthen their bottom line. By contrast, in-house catering services are able to take an entirely different focus. Their entire goal is to ensure the school children are given healthy, nutritious and tasty meals. This is clear and direct line of accountability. That's why, Mr. Chairman, for the reasons as set out today, we cannot support any proposals in this way. And I think the final few points I want to make is, of course, it's not just exclusively school meals, it's Meals on Wheels, some of the more vulnerable members of the community. And I think members will have heard the chairman, I think, again, speaking very fairly and very frankly, and I think everything he said was true. I think it must be understood that that's the position we're in now. The service roughly is a £34 million turnover, and we're talking about a £1 million loss. In the grand scheme of what the county council does, £1 million is pocket change. And I actually think that could be made to break even or even make a profit. And you might think what I've said today is scaremongering, but let's just look at what's happened in other councils, but also in Nottinghamshire already. So secondary schools have already moved. Secondary schools have already moved away from using our service predominantly. I can't think Mark will be able to correct me, but I'm not sure any secondary schools use our service, but certainly the lion's share don't. What do they serve? Pizzas, burgers, chips, and we get given the excuse that that's the only thing they want to eat, but that's the only thing on the menu, and that we need to keep providing these services directly. But I apologise for the lengthy speech. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience. I certainly won't abuse this position any longer. But that's
Brilliant,
my position outlined, and
okay.
I thank members for the time in the working group.
No, thank you for your opinion, and as always, just a quick. I just want to clarify something, because school meals within schools that Nottinghamshire County Council still manage have all their meals from Nottinghamshire County Council. It's when it goes to academisation that sometimes they change. Just want to make that point. Who was up first? I think it was Councillor Gowland, actually. I've got you on the list, Councillor Saddington. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wasn't on the working party, and to be honest, it is a complicated document here. But from what I understand is that for this to succeed, this change to succeed, something must change. So if it is truly to be the same food, quality, quantity and location, or sort of location, origin of the food, truly to be the same terms and conditions as staff, truly, which as Councillor Hollis has suggested may need to be questioned, if those are not going to change, what is going to change? And presumably what's going to change is that the new organisation would bring more commercial nous. And I have to ask, why can't we do that in-house? This is not only catering, it's also facilities. And if they're going to both be under a single umbrella, that seems to me quite a big ask in outsourcing, or whatever the terminology is. I'd be interested to know whether the partner could be a charitable trust. And I do note that the schools in my area, I thought there were council schools, county schools and primary schools in my area are getting their meals from the city. So if the city can do it, why can't we? So we would like to propose 2 changes to these recommendations. Recommendation 2, that we add in simply that the results of this exercise are brought back to the Place Select Committee before any further action is taken, so that we understand what are the options. And that most importantly, I think, in recommendation 3, where it talks about engagement, that we include the statement that facility management services should be supported with meaningful consultation with all affected unions and other interested parties, and full-scale engagement and communication with staff and customers, and that the results of this consultation and engagement is brought back to the Place Select Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Just 1 second. Councillor Sykes, did you want to talk? Sorry, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I was a member of this working group, and I think this report is extremely thorough. I think it was a very thorough working party looking into everything. I appreciate Councillor Gowland wasn't a member of the working party, but I question why we have to follow Nottingham City. They're actually bankrupt through doing what they tried to do, so I don't think they're any example of who to follow. But this was extremely thorough, and as the chairman's alluded to, I don't think we've had such a thorough working report produced in the past. But what I have to question is why Councillor Hollis, who was a member of this working party, actually had to give a 5-minute speech on what he thought was wrong with this when you got yours in here. We're not all giving 5-minute speeches on what we think. You gave at least a 5-minute speech on what you think. You could have been at the working party. You chose to do it by Teams, so some of it you may have missed, because I appreciate Teams is... Yes, you did. You might have been fully engaged, but you worked on Teams, and you can't...
Sorry, Councillor, sorry, one second. Sorry,
I don't
just
believe
as far as
travelling
the...
unnecessarily wasting the environment's
just
energy.
let her tell
no matter whether you're
what she's got to say.
saving the
Thank you.
environment or not. I'm saying that you were part of this working party, yet you come up with your points at the very end. Why weren't all your concerns alluded to during this working party, rather than bring something up at the end? You've already got a report in here. I would have thought that was enough. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, just to confirm, as far as the task and finish group, Tom didn't attend all of it. No, you're absolutely right. So you did attend part of it. You didn't come to the any of the meetings at the.
Sorry, Chair. I think that just needs to be. I think that just
food site. Did you come? I'm sure.
I think this needs to be corrected.
Oh, do you want to confirm you're at the site?
There was three meetings, one of which on site, and Mark will be able to clarify. I visited these sites on multiple occasions. I have a school meal with my own schools once a year in each school. I'm fully aware of the sites themselves. I didn't need to go around at the same time. But with regards to attending the meetings, I was there for every second of every meeting. And while Councillor Saddington, I have amazing respect for you, I think you're probably one of the most I respect most in this chamber. I think it'd be slightly unfair to say that a Teams meeting isn't being present when it is just exactly the same. And then secondly, we were presented with information and then asked to resolve it secondly. And just because my opinion may differ to yours doesn't give it any less importance. And I'd hope that interrupting a presentation when it was a very lengthy presentation, we were then told to digest the information, then come up with recommendations. I did that in exactly the same forum as everybody else. And why have I given a 5-minute speech? I think this is probably one of the most important issues that's ever crossed this committee's desk, and something that affects my constituents are far more deprived than yours, and I hope you wouldn't mind me pointing that out. We rely on school meals. Predominantly all my constituents use free school meals, all the school's meal service. I don't want to see my kids and the kids I represent eating burgers, and I think what's served now is perfect. And don't shake your head, because actually in secondary schools they're already eating burgers.
Thanks for your points.
Point of correction here. The day we went to the catering establishment, we saw the food that was being prepared. It wasn't burgers. It was actually sliced chicken breast. It was there to see.
You're voting to change that today.
No.
That's
Tom,
what serves
that's not
now.
what we're voting for. That is not what we're voting for. So
Let's keep it the same if you like.
let's stick to the recommendations that we've got from the House today. Yeah, just sorry. Thank you. Just to make the point as well, we aren't making a decision today. We are passing a group of recommendations to a cabinet member who, in the capacity as his role and his decision making, is where that decision is made. So the fact that Councillor Hollis has had his points published within this report, the fact that our task and finish group all went out, visited the sites, enjoyed the food, did all of that work to ensure that we understood it before we got to an end decision. I know Councillor Callahan was a very active member of that group throughout. We've come to that point now where we're handing over the options to the cabinet member to make the decision. So I'm afraid, Councillor Hollis, your point around we are voting to change it is not what we're doing. We are voting to make a recommendation on the basis of what we've seen to make it into a partnership. And I'll read those recommendations out again just for the point so everybody's aware of what they say. So the review group will note the significant social value that is provided through the delivery of catering and facilities management services. Their appreciation to all catering and facilities management staff for the high level of service that they consistently provide to residents across Nottinghamshire, and the current unsustainable financial pressures that are being faced by the catering and facilities management service. 2, that having considered the range of potential alternative options of how the catering and facilities management service could be delivered in the future, that the option to delivery through a partnership approach should be prioritised, not decided upon, but prioritised, for further exploration and assessment through an appropriate procurement exercise to explore the market in order to gain a detailed understanding of the option's potential benefits and limitations. 3, that any future changes to the delivery of the catering and facilities management services should be supported with large-scale engagement and communication with staff and customers. And again, I think that ties in with points already been made. Number 4, that any future changes to the delivery of the catering and facilities management service should enable the significant potential of county enterprise foods to be fully realised and developed. And 5, the strategic review of the 15 landscape depots should be carried out, non-staffed I might add, depots should be carried out to identify how they could be best used as a part of the service's operational estate. So that's the recommendations as we have them. That's the recommendations that were agreed as a result of that working group.
Can I just make one point?
Yes, please do, Martin. Thank you.
Let's just reaffirm that what you're actually voting on today is whether those recommendations go to the cabinet and cabinet member for approval. As the chair said, it's not a decision; it is just recommending that those decisions go.
So, yeah, so that's we've confirmed all of that information. Like I said, that will be going to the cabinet member to make the decision. We're not making a decision here today. Let's make that absolutely clear. And we've all had an opportunity through this process to voice our concerns, to voice our beliefs, and get that information passed over in this report. And that's why this report's been so good, and that's why it deals with all of the questions and gives the opportunity, like I said, for the cabinet member to make that decision. Was there anybody else that wants to speak on this? Councillor Upton, anybody else? Martin. Okay. So I'll go back to that now, and then Councillor Upton, if you'd like to make your point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I would have liked to have been part of the review group, but circumstances at the time prevented it. But a very good report, very informative report. I enjoyed reading it, and it's very informative, as I say. I think I'm correct, Councillor Gowan, say that you touched on the complexity, if I could call it that, by putting catering along with FM, building, cleaning, hygiene, grounds maintenance, landscaping. Quite a complex mix, I would suggest, of having those together. And more so, I think you touched on, well, what organisations are out there that would encompass all of that. So I have some thoughts that I will have a conversation with Councillor Carlton, the cabinet member, rather than go into the detail in this meeting. But that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor David Martin, please.
Yeah, Chair. The last conversation's just thrown me completely off my train of thought. But perhaps ought to declare an interest because my daughter is a teacher at a primary school in Nottinghamshire. And I'd just like to say that from an adult health and social care perspective, that obviously school meals are vitally important, and it is a really important service, and we need to make sure we get it right, because for a lot of our children in all areas, not just in Ashfield, but in Ashfield and Mansfield, it tends to be more prevalent. In Bassett Law, we have a different issue over dietary issues. But the statistics for adult health and social care show that people in Rushcliffe generally live 10 years longer than people in the north of the county. And I use an umbrella from Newark and Sherwood right the way across. And of course, early years, during children's early years, is vitally important, the food that they eat, and the broad spectrum of the quality of the food that they receive is vitally important. And as Councillor Hollis has already alluded to, £1 million lost per year, it is something that needs to be reviewed. Don't get me wrong, but I also take on board Councillor Gallen's point of view that maybe this service could be reviewed from within, but the actual detrimental impact of getting this decision wrong and the adverse impact on adult health and social care going forward, as we've seen, if we look across the pond to America, the obesity rates just spiral out of control. And I can tell you that there isn't a day, there isn't a week where my daughter comes home and tells me that she's got Billy from Arkwright Street who's not eaten a meal since he last came to school. So there are at least 25% of the children in the two classes out of 70 people who haven't eaten a proper meal all week. The only time they get a proper meal is in that classroom and in that school. And she said to me only the other day that they have a cupboard in the class where they keep apples, bananas, and satsumas, and the kids who are really getting hungry by 3 o'clock, they pass them on to. And there are children begging for those apples and bananas and satsumas before they go home because they are so hungry, and they know full well that they aren't going to get another meal until they come back to school the next day. So when we look at the fiscal side of it, yes, we understand that, but the social side of it is absolutely paramount importance, especially the spectrum and the broad variety of foods that are already and historically have been an excellent service and have been provided over years. If you ask any councillor in this room, they will all have a good thing to say about school meals. I can't think of anybody that wouldn't. And usually those people that do say something detrimental about school meals are picky eaters. You know, that's what I would say. But the adversarial health impact on the county going forward is something that we really need to take on board and consider. And I think there are quite a few options that we could play around with and get that within budget and keep it where it is. You know, and as for Meals on Wheels, I don't have to tell anybody. Everybody's got residents who can't get out, you know, and everybody's got residents that use Meals on Wheels. And the cost differential between private companies like one beginning with W, I'm not going to name it on here, but the actual cost implication is huge. And of course, we all know that Meals on Wheels, that is some of the only times that people come into contact with other people. And it's not just about the meal, it's about that contact. Whereas the contractual firms, the more expensive firms, it's on block delivery. You know.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you made some good points there. And actually, if you look, like I said, in recommendations, we do take into account that. I think.
Yeah, I've not been on your working party.
No,
so
I know.
So I'm extrapolating the point.
I recognise that.
So,
but I think you've made some good points around the things that we've been through all of that. This is the end product that comes out of the exhaust pipe,
I just do seriously think that the health impact on the kids is really at the top of my list. So thank you, Chair.
Good. No, thank you. No, seriously, thank you. Because again, like I said, we've made it clear in this that part to all of us was fundamentally important, and I think the check-in, the health and well-being check of the individuals that's done in the morning is absolutely fundamental in ensuring that that people live long and well lives. So yeah, we fully took that on board during the process, and in fact we got to see one of the actual vans where the meals go in and they're taken round and they heat up as they get to the properties, and it comes out piping hot, and they go in. And there was a guy said that they saw a lot of people, and some people maybe hadn't got up and got dressed, and they encouraged them to do that. And there's so it's some fantastic work goes on, and absolutely the value of that is, you can't put a value on that for our residents, and everybody who's been involved with this process has taken that fully on board. But again, like I said, because I know you weren't on that, I appreciate your comments on it anyway. Councillor Callahan, if you'd like to come in next, thank you.
Yeah, I was on the working group, and yeah, it did do some fantastic work. And yeah, I take on board what everybody's saying here again today, and also about the recommendations. And again, I'm talking to you now as the cabinet member about that. If any future changes to the delivery of the catering and facilities, if you could bring it back to this group. So that we can have meaningful conversations with the unions and the staff involved. And also looking at how we've got with our libraries with Inspire. That's a charity and that's run really, really well. And if we could get a similar partnership with another charity around food supply, that would be even more advantageous if we can't go on as a single point of delivering for our children. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think you make a great point, and I think we would, it'd be great to keep an update going and a conversation ongoing. Thank you. Yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee colleagues. From when I brought the initial report that triggered this process to you just before Christmas, it was a very open and honest report, trying to be transparent, detailing the challenges that face the service that's in before us this morning. And I'm really grateful to see that the in-depth nature of that task and finish report coming here this morning. Obviously, a publication of papers I've had a chance to have a read through, but certainly in the coming weeks and months, I'd like to dig inside it a bit further. As has been alluded to already, it's a very complex contract, delivering not just meals in schools, but as has been referenced, also for adult social care to some of the most vulnerable residents in the county. I'm absolutely delighted that you've been able to lift the lid on the service to a degree, bring it to life. Certainly in my induction period as a cabinet member for communities and public health, there were aspects of it I didn't necessarily know straight away because of the complexity of that. Picking one point that was made by Councillor Upton, absolutely, I'm up for having those ongoing conversations, and I absolutely welcome the well-rounded nature of all views being represented in this report here this morning. Certainly, I think moving forward, as I just alluded to, in the new world of communities and public health, I think there's some further consideration that can be added there through a public health approach as well, to ensure some of the comments that were made by Councillor Martin are fully understood and addressed as well. So I think that's really important to make. So I'm going to stop there, but I thank you for the report and I look to take this forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Just pause for a second. I just want to ask Martin something. Thank you for that. Thanks for your patience. Yeah, just trying to ensure that's captured in terms of the update point, Councillor Callahan, you made. I think we're gonna get that added into the work programme, which is the next agenda item, to ensure that feedback comes back at a later date. We keep in touch with Councillor Carlton to ensure that we know exactly what's going on in terms of and how the updates are happening, what's changing, that sort of thing. So we'll get that added in for the future. Do you want to come back? Go for it.
It's just that meaningful conversations with the unions and staff. Will that be happening going forward as part of
meaningful consultation?
Yeah,
the meaningful consultation.
Mark Walker, do you want to come in at this point?
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, just to say that We have an internal project board for this piece of work, and the unions I'm invited to that and attended. I also briefed Unison and GMB members last week with Hannah Gimmel, the head of HR here, and also, of course, they were invited to the Task and Finish group. So that conversation we've opened it, it's ongoing, and yeah, we're going to fully engage with them because we recognise we've got a lot of staff here, and it's important to make sure we're fully on board with them.
Yeah, come back. Yeah.
Can I just ask you, are you going to have meaningful consultations?
Yes, we will, and we have done.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes.
Just one point to make, and then I want to call for a named vote. Number one. I know it's just a very important issue.
I know it's a very important issue, but you've had a very long time to talk about it.
I appreciate
Please
that.
just come back with the name vote request and we'll move on. Thank you.
Chairman, just
Do
with
you want a name vote? Yes or no?
I'm not. I'll have finished my point by
Tom,
now.
you've had enough time to talk about and raise your issues and raise
with
your points.
respect to the council was appointed me as the vice chairman.
Yes,
you
but
as
I'm the chairman,
It doesn't,
and so
doesn't allow you to talk overside debate. Nobody else could have shut down.
You've had a great opportunity to speak. I'm sure everybody in here would appreciate the fact you did a fantastically strong speech at the start. I know. And look, if you like a name vote, that's fine. I'm not willing to take any more debate from you on this, I'm afraid.
So we're not prepared to have a point of clarity on the recommendation we're about to vote on.
You can have a point of clarity, absolutely.
And the point of clarity is that we appreciate Councillor Carlton is a very busy person, and I appreciate that we've sent this to the committee here for us to spend a lot of time, and I really hope he's enjoyed the debate today, also the discussion. But of course, Councillor Carlton, and I was hoping some sort on Mr. Elliott here, is entitled to make his decision now. He doesn't need to bring it back to the committee, and I'm sure we'll get an email to say that the executive decision has been taken to approve the recommendations that we've just made today. So I think particularly Labour members need to be awake to the idea of this will not come back to this committee until after the decision's been made.
Martin Elliott, do you want to come in?
We'll call for a name vote.
So
we were going to discuss that in the work programme. We're discussing that next.
Two things. So the next stage, obviously, when the recommendations, if you approve them, as in 1, 2, 3, the recommendations will go to the cabinet member, then they'll be considered and reported on in cabinet with the actual what the response is. Any decisions around what happens next is obviously an executive matter. So that's just a clarity there. And with how place select committee members are kept up to date, if you're happy, what we'll do, obviously, we're coming into the work programming season in the next few weeks, and obviously how members are kept up to date with what happens next with regarding the catering and facilities management service will be considered as part of that. So if you're happy that will be thrown into the work programming process for next year, that will be fine. And then what you'll be voting on is obviously the recommendations. This is detailed in the report, which are that you receive the report, that the dissenting views are noted, and the recommendations, which obviously the chair read out earlier, are then forwarded on to cabinet and cabinet member for consideration.
Councillor Khan, you want to come back?
Yeah, very quickly, Chairman, if it helps keep the spirit of the debate in a good place this morning, from where I certainly, as I alluded to earlier, in pre-Christmas with the initial report, I'm absolutely happy to put on the record this morning. I'd be happy to bring back regular progress reports.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I hope that answers all of your concerns. Thank you. Okay, so I have had a request for a name vote. I guess I need a seconder for that request. Do I have a seconder for a name vote? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So all those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Okay. And all those against? And that means there's no abstentions.
Yes, that'll be recorded in minutes.
Okay, that'll be recorded in minutes. Thank you very much. Thanks for the debate, everyone. My hour meeting went completely out of the window. I'll thank that councillor for his wisdom another day. But thank you for everyone that's attended. Thank you for all your input on that so far. We're now going to move on to number 8, agenda item 8, which is the work programme. Thank you.
Just really briefly, obviously there's just one more meeting in this on the work programme. There's been one addition since the agenda was published. So at the June meeting there'll be a report coming on the local nature recovery strategy. So that will give members an opportunity to be part of the development of that strategy for some advanced scrutiny work on that. And then obviously we will be doing the work programming process over the before the summer break. So we'll be getting in touch with how that will be carried out to make sure that you know from the departments what the big issues coming up, and also having your opportunity to raise some issues that you'd like to be looked at as well. So the work programme is there, and it's just a note.
For Councillor Saddington, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at this work programme, two items which are to be confirmed when the project starts. Could we include the blue badge in with the residents' parking schemes? Mainly because I'm having complaints that people are having to fill the blue badge in online, and not all people who need a blue badge actually have a computer to do it on. They want to be able to do it in hard copy. Yeah, and the other thing, as I came here this morning and didn't get here quite as quickly as I thought I might, the rain pouring, there is no question that we'll have more flooding, possibly even this weekend if this weather continues. We're looking at gully cleaning to be confirmed. Can I ask, please, that is done sooner rather than later? Because we're coming to the summer when we're in recess, and without a shadow of a doubt, as soon as autumn arrives, we're going to possibly have more storms. Water this morning, talking about Councillor Gowland's patch round by down whatever road it is as you come in, past the tennis, past the cricket place. Water was just bubbling out of the gullies. It was all across the road, and I think we need to look very soon at gully cleaning, because I'm not a shadow of a doubt that contributed towards the flooding.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Martin, do you want to come in?
Two things. I'm sure Councillor Elliott would agree. He's expressed concerns about the blue badge process as well, so we are working. It'll be on because it's through the customer service centre, so it'll be through overview committee, and that is work in hand. So I hope that will be happening quite soon. And regarding the gully cleaning, as you'll see, there's the two reviews that requested at the council, the motions from council. We're currently just working on the scope for those, and they'll be combined. So they'll be done as it'll be one big review, but it will be flooding and gully cleaning in that as well. So hopefully you'll be hearing the next week or so about when that work will be starting. But so both of those issues are good issues, and they are both in hand.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Yeah,
just very briefly, I think just to support what Councillor Saddington said, my mailbag has probably had more blue badge inquiries than probably ever before. So if there's anything we can do to speed getting that conversation up, certainly the feedback I get, not only is it difficult online, but then they don't hear back, if anything. But then when I phone up, it's just there and then it gets sorted out. But you kind of, and I'm sure you've had the same experience. I wonder how many residents are just sat waiting in limbo. So maybe it's just a few teething problems in the system.
Yeah, great, good observations, and really important we get that right for residents who rely on them. Has anybody else got anything else they'd like to bring into the game? No. Okay. I think that wraps us up then. So yeah, we'll see you in a month's time. Basically, thanks ever so much for your time. Appreciate it. Have a nice afternoon, and try and keep dry. Thanks a lot. Bye.